I was married to my ex-wife for almost 4 years, but unfortunately, we had to go our separate ways because she did the unthinkable. My ex-wife and I met at a business seminar in town. We were there to listen to a renowned business guest speaker. And, coincidentally, we sat beside each other. Throughout the seminar, we occasionally talked about a couple of things, which mostly have to do with the things we learned. And after the seminar was over, we exchanged contacts. We started talking, and about a week later, we decided to go out for lunch. As we had lunch that day, I was puzzled at how intelligent she was and her passion for business. And after our first date, we saw each other more often. Eventually, we ended up dating because I fell in love with her, and 8 months later, we married. We were married for almost 4 years before I found out she had been making a fool out of me. I'd love to add that while my ex-wife and I were married, there was nothing she wanted that I didn't give her. Still am a businessman and earned decent money. My ex-wife didn't own a business like mine. She worked for a business consultant firm and was earning well too. We had no kids because she said she wasn't ready, and I was okay with that. All through the 3 years of our marriage, I did my best as a good husband and even helped at home. I wanted more than anything for us to be happily married for as long as possible, offered to help in the kitchen, took her on surprise vacations, and did pretty much what a man would do to make the woman he loved happy. Even on my hectic entire days, I made sure I went home early, never canceled on her. And most times, I had to reschedule many things because I believed family was one of the most important aspects of life. Unlike other couples, my ex-wife and I barely fought. She was more of an extrovert, a very social butterfly, and the life of the party, while I was reserved to a level. So whenever we had a reason to argue, she was always at fault. And each time we were so close to fighting or arguing, I would always apologize because I wanted us to be at peace at all times. I know you all might think I did that as a weak man, but that's not why. I grew up in a very toxic environment. My parents were always fighting, and I did not want to replicate the same thing in my marriage. On our 3rd anniversary, we did a renewal of wedding vows, and almost 7 months after, I stumbled upon something that altered the rest of our marriage. That Saturday, I was cleaning the house, and I had every intention of cleaning our closet. My ex-wife and I shared a closet. She had been the only one cleaning it in the past. So I decided to take things out of the closet that day and thoroughly clean up. I started by taking things out of the closet. And once I was done cleaning and dusting, I tried to arrange and organize them again. While organizing, I mistakenly kicked open one of my wife's shoeboxes as I tried to move around, and many letters and pictures were scattered on the ground. At first, I was worried I kicked out one of her expensive shoes because she left the very expensive ones in a box. But after I saw the letters, I was relieved. Initially, I thought the letters were old letters from an old teenage lover, or maybe there were letters she had never sent. And I was curious to find out how foolish in love she was at that time. But as I looked at them closely, I noticed recently added letters, which piqued my curiosity. As soon as I got down to the 4th line of one of the recently added letters, I felt my lower stomach churn and my heartbeat increased. And as I got to the end, my world shattered. I was right. There were letters from an old lover, and it was her high school crush. The letter I read detailed one of the recent escapades. There were even photos of them lying under the sheets together. It wasn't just one letter. There were more of them, and one of them even talked about the night before our wedding. And how they enjoyed each other in bed. I wanted to be sure of what I read, so I went through all the letters and realized their relationship had been going on even while we were dating. Needless to ask if I was heartbroken, because I was beyond heartbroken. I was devastated and hurt, and in my 37 years on Earth, it was the second time a woman had hurt me so much. The worst part was that I never saw it coming and would never believe my wife would cheat. I don't know how she did it because nothing was alarming about her. She still cared for me and the house and satisfied my bed needs, and I never suspected her or noticed anything fishy. I have watched a few videos on this channel, where men say their wives changed suddenly or dressed differently. But with my ex-wife, there was no sign. Everything remained the same, and our love for each other grew over the years too. That same afternoon, she returned home and acted like everything was cool, but how I saw her changed. I tried to hide it, but it was not as easy as I imagined. It hurt so much that I loved her blindly, but she took my love for granted and cheated on me. The good thing was she was hosting her high school reunion, which was only a few days away. I had already scanned the letters and photos and intended to send them straight to her parents, but I got an idea from one of the stories I listened to here. As a part of their high school reunion, she created a slideshow of all her memories in high school, and I saw that as a perfect way to carry out my revenge. A night before her dear reunion, I secretly planted the letter and photos I scanned in her slideshow almost at the beginning, and I waited for her to humiliate herself publicly. On D-Day, everyone gathered as planned, both from near and far, and they were all having a good time. At the venue, I saw her crush, and she exchanged a couple of smiles with him. Honestly, I almost lost it, but I didn't want to ruin my perfect plan. Eventually, the time for her slideshow came, and just as she was smiling at the screen and expecting to see another of her teenage hot girl pictures, the picture of her and her high school crush under the sheet popped up, and her mouth throbbed. She was so shocked, but it wasn't just her. Her friends and classmates were shocked too. And just as she was trying to wrap her head around what was happening, the last slideshow came with instructions from me, which read, "Don't come home tonight. We are getting divorced." Immediately she read that, she turned in my direction and ran towards me, but I walked out of the venue. Before I left, I could see the disappointment on the faces of her friends and classmates, and it appeased me. That night, she did not come home as I had instructed. But she kept blowing my phone with calls, text messages, and voicemails. One of her voicemails said she could explain, and it wasn't what I thought. The next day, I received a package I ordered. They were pillows and huge gift bags with the picture of her and her affair partner printed on them. And I sent them along with her stuff to her parents' house. I also dropped the letters and original pictures on their WhatsApp family group chat and exited the group. As expected, her parents tried to call, but I blocked their and my ex-wife's numbers too. When the divorce papers were ready, my lawyer reached out to her and she signed them after delaying for a while. Although it's so painful, I'm glad we are not together anymore. Now I get why most people kick against the idea of getting married. And I think I might fall in love one day, but I'm done with getting married and repeating the cycle with unfaithful women. Thank you for sharing your story with me. It's unbelievable when women say I can explain after cheating on their spouse. What does that even mean? It's great that you got this over and done with. You don't need a cheat and a manipulator in your life. I know it hurts, and if you don't want to get married again, the call is yours to make, but make sure you heal properly and enjoy all the good things life will bring your way. I wish you all the best. Now let's move on to the next story of the day. My name is Cole, and I was married to my ex-wife, June, for 2 years. Right from the first time I met June, I knew her to be a go-getter, and she had her way of being exceptional at anything she did. The first time we met was at work as recruits, and within months, she got promoted because of her hard work and dedication. About a year later, she left our company because she got a better offer, but there were rumors that she had a fallout with one of our bosses. But because June and I were close friends, I never believed anything they said after she left. After June left our company, we remained in touch, and even though I felt she was out of my league, I still liked her. One of the things that pulled me closer to her was her intelligence. She had an answer for everything, even the dumbest questions, and she was one of our best. We got closer to each other, and we were almost like male and female besties. We were so close that she told me about everything happening in her life at work, the guys asking her out, and so on. I did the same, but I never shared personal details about myself. Unlike me, June was an open book. She didn't need to know you so well to tell you about her childhood. In the process of being so close, I fell in love with her. And when I professed my feelings to her, she admitted that she liked me too. Eventually, we dated and ended up marrying after a year. Being married to June felt good, and even though we fought and argued a lot of times, there was nothing we couldn't fix. Aside from our fights and arguments, every other thing was great with us. We looked after each other, supported, and pushed ourselves to become better versions. On my end, I provided for June and took full responsibility for rent, groceries, gas, and other bills, and occasionally, June would contribute to it. This was because there was a business idea she was working on, and we had an agreement she would push whatever she earned to it for a couple of months, and I would single-handedly take care of us. Unfortunately, after 13 months of our marriage, I was laid off from my organization. It was a huge surprise and changed many things at home. For starters, I could not afford to pay rent, buy groceries, pay bills, or do the things I used to do before because I had a minimal amount of savings. And when that was exhausted, I had to depend on June to take care of the house until I got back on my feet. I submitted applications to multiple organizations, and I didn't get any positive response for months. I even tried doing manual hourly jobs for a week, but it felt so out of place. And the pay was so low that even if I worked 50 hours a week for 4 weeks, it would be nothing compared to how much I earned. So I quit and focused more on applying for my kind of work. Around the same time, I was jobless. I noticed that June's attitude changed greatly. She no longer talked to me with respect. At every slightest provocation, she would remind me that she was taking care of the house. This hurt every time she said it. The first time we argued about me not making dinner for her on time, she said it in anger, and I believed she was stressed and exhausted. I even apologized to let peace ring, but after that, she mentioned it every day. Whether I did something wrong or not, she would always find a way to mock me for my joblessness and remind me that she was the one taking care of the house and paying all the bills. Also, it didn't end with the insults. Our intimacy reduced too, and she didn't even let me touch her. Every time I tried, she rudely turned me down or claimed she had to sleep early so she would go to work on time the following day. And because I wasn't working, I took over the full responsibility of cleaning, cooking, doing the laundry. I'll admit I was hurt and heartbroken when she treated me and acted that way. And even after I got a job, things did not go back to how they used to be between us. Eventually, I was able to find a job. Although the pay was not as good as my first job, it was better than doing nothing. With my new job, things were back on track for me, but our relationship was sour from there. After I broke the news of my new job, she became nicer and apologized for everything she said to me. She even said she didn't mean to be rude, but she only encouraged me not to get comfortable with my joblessness. Despite everything she said, I still loved her and hoped we could work things out. I also forgave her for all the ill things she had said to me and the terrible treatment. On her end, I had seen a couple of improvements, but it wasn't like before, and I believed everything would be back to normal with time, but I was wrong. Despite having a new job, June and I were still distant. She only allowed me to touch her whenever she was in a good mood, and she became more engrossed with work and barely had time for me. It got to the point where I was so tired of our marriage, and I tried as much as I could talk to her, but everything I said was ignored. One day, I wanted to borrow her laptop to do something quick, since I had forgotten mine at the office. And as soon as I turned it on, I got a notification from her bank. I shouldn't have checked her earnings since we were no longer close, but I was curious how much she earned. She had recently been promoted, and she never mentioned how much she was making, and to my greatest surprise, when I checked, it was a lot. So much that I wondered how it was possible. And as I did some further investigation, to see how much extra it was for her previous salary, I stumbled upon something that revealed a bitter truth. In the past few months, June's transactions showed she had been making strange purchases, including payment for hotel rooms in a particular 5-star hotel. And the moment I saw that, I knew something was wrong. Out of instinct, I printed out copies of these strange expenses, and I cleared every trace that I had touched her laptop. I could not continue with what I wanted to do because I couldn't stop thinking. The following day, when June woke up, she told me she would be going out of town for a 2-day business meeting and coming home on Monday morning. I knew everything was wrong with her business meeting because she barely worked on weekends, so I pretended everything was cool and kissed her goodbye. Shortly after she left, I followed her, and she went to the same hotel from her transactions. When she arrived, a man I recognized as her boss from work welcomed her. They kissed and went into the hotel together. Luckily, I had my phone camera ready, and took clear shots of them kissing outside Jun's car and him wrapping his hand around her waist as they walked into the hotel. Saying I was heartbroken is just an understatement. First, I could not believe that Kian was cheating on me with her boss, and while I was sulking in my broken state, everything made sense. The reason she earned so much monthly and got 3 promotions in the space of a year was because she was doing her boss, yet she called herself my wife. Aside from being heartbroken, I was so mad and I wanted to pay her back for hurting me that way. So as soon as I got home, I did some digging and sent everything I'd gathered to her company, and I waited for the volcano to erupt. On Monday morning, she returned as she told me, but she met her bags out on the porch. I told her to her face that I knew she was cheating on me, and her marriage was over. Instead of begging as I expected, she picked her stuff, murmured words I didn't hear and drove off. At that time, I'm guessing her company did not reach out to her yet because when she was kicked out of work, she called me and cried over the phone like a child who lost her candy. Not to sound like a sadist, but I enjoyed listening to her cry, and I wished she had gotten worse. After she realized that she no longer had her job, and her relationship with her sugar daddy was out in the open, she tried to come back to me, but it was too late. I contacted a divorce lawyer and shortly after that, we divorced, and I moved on with my life. As for her boss, the last time I heard, he was money laundering. He was also responsible for the increase in June's salary, and it was discovered that June was not his only sugar baby. He had a few others in the company. Now that I think of it, I can't help but believe that June was having an affair with one of our bosses in our former company, which was why she was sacked. She hurt me so much, and I'm even afraid to fall in love again. After we divorced, I have not seen her anymore, and I hope I don't. She deserves all the misery in the world, and I pray she gets enough of it. OP. What I'm wondering is how did you not leave June after she treated you like trash when you were jobless? To even think that you took care of rent and all the bills for as long as you did, and she couldn't show any appreciation for that is crazy. I'm glad you found out she was cheating on you, and this is a good enough reason to get rid of her. Take some time to heal. Soon, you will forget all about her. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe